I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things, a-creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes! Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, Columbus, and hello to those of you listening on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMare, and I'm here with my incredible co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
Yes, and together Rebecca and I are going to be crafting you an unbelievable hour. Well, actually, it's quite believable since everything we say is factual, but
Yeah.
a really good hour of radio called For a Green Future. And For a Green Future is a show where we talk about ecology and the environment, and we talk about them in the ways that they affect you, your wealth, your health, your happiness, the wealth and health and happiness of your friends and your family and your coworkers and the birds that are still all confused about migration this year because it's like really warm still, and the fish and the insects that are still hanging around, the crickets are still going strong, and basically everyone and everything, because, like it or not, we're all together on this wonderful planet called Earth. And we have a wonderful show lined up for you today. We are just going to chat for another 10 minutes or so here. Then we have a returning guest, friend of the show, Kevin Kamps from Beyond Nuclear, is going to talk to us about the latest development in the whole Palisades reopening scam. So we're going to talk about that. And then we'll hear from our advertisers and patrons. And then we'll hear from Rebecca. And Rebecca, what will you be talking to us about?
I'm going to be doing a segment called Phucket, Let's Go Vegan.
Okay. Let's go vegan. All right.
Yes.
Sounds great. So without further ado, I guess we'll get right into it. So I don't know how anybody in the listening audience managed to catch a glimpse of the Northern Lights last night. I tried down in Bowling Green. Didn't see anything, but apparently if you went all the way to the lake, you got to look out over the horizon, and you could see the actual Northern Lights. If anybody did, just give a call in. And it just seems like this year is sort of a record year for Northern Lights sightings, doesn't it? I mean, it's like every couple of weeks they say that there's a coronal mass ejection, and we get to see things, and it's just an example of, another example of how cool the natural world is and how, neat things can be if you go look at it. But what I wanted to talk about this week during my little 10 minutes here, we actually got some feedback from a listener, and they kind of took me to task because they said that we're not talking enough about how the way Americans eat affects global warming and affects the environment. This listener is a vegan, and so they wanted us to talk a little bit about how that affects things. And it is true that raising meat costs a lot more in terms of putting carbon into the air and taking up land area. Right now, 32% of the world's land area is given over to farming. and roughly 2/3 of that is like permanent pasture, which the only reason that's there is so that cows and sheep can graze and turn into the meat that we all like to eat. Well, we don't all like to eat it. That's the whole point. And it is really true that just by reducing your meat intake, that you can make a big impact in terms of protecting the environment. The U.S. is actually third in terms of eating beef. Believe it or not, Argentina and Zimbabwe are ahead of us in terms of per capita meat eating, but we still eat, roughly quadruple the global average. The average American eats 83 pounds of meat per person per year.
Gee whiz.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Sounds
of meat.
like a lot when you put it like that.
It is. It is. That's more than a pound a week, and it's like, it's something that really does have a huge impact, not just because of the land area, which we just talked about, but because the feed has to be grown and then fed to the animals, which takes tons of carbon dioxide, creates lots of global warming. And then, like with cattle, beef is by far ecologically the worst in terms of environmental impact. But the cattle actually are significant generators of methane. I know that's one of the things that people get, that anti-environmentalists mock.
So am I, so you shouldn't eat me either.
There you go. Yeah, same rule applies. Do not eat my co-host. Thank you. But cattle produce a lot of methane. They don't digest things well. And if you've ever been to a fair, you know that they're always, passing gas there.
Yep.
And it's worse with the CAFOs, with the concentrated animal feed lots, because, those just also, the waste from those goes into the waterways, and that's what's causing our algal blooms. And, those algal blooms also produce methane. So pretty much the whole cycle of growing, eating, and, everything about eating meat, and especially beef, does hurt the environment. Now, it's been estimated that it's just by substituting chicken for beef, a person could reduce the amount of CO2, food-related CO2 they put into the air every year. And there's a real battle right now, in the public media, for the public minds here, because the millennials are drifting away from meat. Well, they're going at a pretty good clip. Actually, meat demand has gone down like 9%. It was like pork was down 9%, chicken's down 7%, and millennials are moving away from dairy, like cow dairy, and they're moving towards things like almond milk and oat milk and other sorts of milks. Gen Z also is very kind of reducing on their meat, so the meat industry has responded by going back to an old trope, I should say, making the claim that eating beef is like necessary for manliness, right? That and in fact, men do eat way more meat than women.
Somebody needs to tell bulls.
Tell who?
Bulls.
Bulls? Oh, yeah.
they're pretty masculine.
Yeah. So
and they don't eat any meat at all.
Mm-hmm. True. Of course, some guys think they might, become more like a bull if you eat a bull, but no, it doesn't doesn't work that way.
That's called sympathetic magic.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So there's a lot of disinformation going around that discourages people from going to the alternatives, like soy, for example. There's a belief, there's a rumor, I've heard it myself, that because soy contains a chemical that's similar to estrogen, if you eat too much soy, you're going to get feminized if you're a guy. And that just simply isn't true. I mean, the amounts and the kind of, effect that this has on your health does not equate to lack of manliness. I mean, the soy, the Japanese eat a lot of soy, and those sumo wrestlers seem pretty masculine to me.
And there's plenty of Japanese people.
Yeah. No, well, actually, they're dropping in population, but
True,
it's
yeah.
not because they eat soy. I can guarantee that. Maybe all the nuclear contamination has something to do with it, but
Maybe.
but it's not the soy because
They've been doing that forever.
exactly, for thousands of years, really.
You got to look at what changed.
So I don't eat beef myself. I gave up beef a long time ago. I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian, but I have cut down on the amount of meat I'm eating, and it really has made a difference in terms of like my weight, for example, and my health. I don't. I have a heart condition which is unrelated to diet, but one of my cardiologists looked at one of my sonograms and said, "Man, I wish I had your arteries." Because, without eating any beef, it really, I believe, slows down the whole, clogged artery thing. So, and, I have low blood pressure, and I'm not alone. A lot of people have switched to vegan or vegetarian diets and felt very big, what they believe is very big improvements in their health. So, and you can get protein, you can get plant protein, you can actually buy it in bulk. I actually have this big little thing of organic plant protein that I add to stuff, like add to my cereals and things. And so I get plenty of protein, and I do eat meat, once or twice a week, which actually is kind of how humans evolved. Most human societies have not evolved to eat meat every day. I mean, you have like the Inuit up there where there are essentially no plants for, for the whole winter, and they eat a lot of meat like every day. But for most of human society, meat eating was a kind of a treat. You'd get it once in a while, and that's kind of how our bodies are set up to digest things. And so, given the harm, like the CAFOs and the global warming and so forth, and the fact that by eating so much meat, we are dying earlier. I mean, we're like 2/3 of Americans are either overweight or obese. And, a large part of that is our diet, which has quadrupled the meat that most of the world has. And so just think about it, try those alternatives, try doing the vegan dish, and the vegan stuff and the vegetarian stuff has gotten a whole lot better over the years. So, all right. Well, I got hopefully we're going to get a call soon from our guest. Yep. Sounds like we're ready to go for that. So let's go to our call with Kevin Kamps. Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Joe?
I'm well. Welcome back to the show. Could you
Thank
just
you.
remind our listeners who you're with and what you folks do?
Yeah, I serve as radioactive waste specialist at Beyond Nuclear. We're based in Tacoma Park, Maryland, right next to Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm. And you are actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're sort of from Michigan, right? So this whole idea of restarting the Palisades nuclear plant it's kind of personal.
Yeah, I'm actually speaking to you from Kalamazoo, Michigan, my hometown. I've been back here a lot with taking care of my mom for several years. And little did we suspect that the Palisades nuclear reactor, which was closed on May 20th of 2022, would make a comeback from closed for good status. It's never been done before anywhere in the world. So it's kind of a nuclear nightmare we've been living with for 2.5 years now.
Yeah, I remember the closure. Whenever a nuke plant closes, I allow myself a day of unbridled joy. And so it was really kind of disappointing when they announced they were going to try to bring it back. But there is some recent developments there. You folks put out a press release a few days ago about the steam tubes. Could you tell us what steam tubes are and why they're important to nuclear plants, and B, what they found out about them?
Yeah, so the steam generators at a pressurized Rado reactor like Palisades are about as big as a school bus, and they have 2 of them at Palisades. And what the steam generators do, the primary coolant water from the reactor core where the nuclear reaction's taking place, the splitting of atoms that generates heat, that superheats the water. It doesn't boil because that's what a pressurized water reactor is it's under 2,000 pounds of pressure to keep it liquid water. But that primary coolant flow that's at 2,000 pounds of pressure and about 600 degrees Fahrenheit, so it, normally would have boiled at 212, that coolant flow goes through the steam generators, and there's a second loop in the steam generators that's not radioactive. The primary loop is radioactive. It's in contact with the nuclear fuel. And that secondary loop is allowed to boil. It's at a much lower pressure. And then that steam is what turns the turbo generator to make electricity. But it is a weak link in the chain at a nuclear plant. The steam generator tubes where this heat transfer takes place are exceedingly thin. They're under this tremendous pressure on the one side, and they're under all this heat. And so sometimes the tubes degrade, many times the tubes degrade. And what just happened at Palisades was a revelation of really widespread tube degradation that Holtec has been trying to downplay for the past couple years, saying, oh, the steam generators are fine. We don't need to do anything about it. We can just restart the reactor with the current steam generator tubes. But we've known since 2006, the previous owner, Consumers Energy, admitted to the Michigan Public Service Commission that the steam generators were so degraded 18 years ago that they needed to be entirely replaced for the second time in the plant's history. And the owner in between, Entergy, never got around to it because the Nuclear Regulatory Commission never required it. And so here we're at this interesting point where Holtec wants to restart Palisades next August, they've said. Is the NRC going to allow them to just make shortcuts and Band-Aid fixes on this very serious safety problem? Because worst case scenario, if you have enough tubes rupture during full power operations, they call it a cascading failure. You could probably get away with one or even a small number of tubes rupturing. But if enough tubes rupture, what that means is you're cutting off the cooling flow to the core. And that can go south very quickly. It can lead to a reactor core meltdown.
Wow. And now, this is not the first nuke plant to have problems with those steam tubes and the steam tube generators, right? That hasn't this caused the closure of other plants in the past?
Well, you mentioned the unbridled joy of reactor shutdowns, and I had such a day in June of 2013, I guess it was, when San Onofre Units 2 and 3 in California, both were declared closed for good because they'd had such massive steam generator tube degradation. And one of the expert witnesses who served for Friends of the Earth at the time in that campaign, Arnie Gunderson, is our expert at Palisades right now, was our expert a decade ago at Davis-Besse, on this very question, because Davis-Besse did replace its steam generators. I guess some credit there. But just like happened at San Onofre, it was the replacement steam generators that were degrading very quickly. And the reason was that they had packed them so full of tubes that they were rubbing against each other. They were trying to maximize profits by making more electricity, and safety was kind of an afterthought. And it really backfired on them at San Onofre. And we had and still have those same concerns at Davis-Besse because they packed the steam generators at Davis-Besse full of extra tubes to maximize profits. And it's really, asking for trouble.
Wow. So these tubes, so they have to be thin, right, to transfer the heat from the primary loop to the secondary loop. So it's sort of like a fundamental design problem. Yeah,
they're robust metallic tubes, but this is, hellish conditions that they're exposed to. And in fact, the current steam generators, which are the second set at Palisades, they were installed in 1990 to 92, and the first set only lasted from 71 to 90. So this will be the third set if they do replace them, but they don't plan on replacing them. What they plan on doing are these really minor modifications. What they often do is they plug tubes that are problematic. And what I was going to say was, right when they were manufactured, brand new steam generators, they found something like over 300 tubes in each generator that were defective. They needed to be plugged when they were brand new. but there's close to 9,000 tubes in each generator, so they can get by with those 300 being plugged. What Holtec, just to show its true colors, what they're proposing to do is not replace the steam generators, but rather unplug the 300 tubes in each generator that were plugged when they were brand new because they were found to be defective. Those are the kind of shortcuts and reversals of safety that Holtec thinks is quite reasonable.
Wow. And just a reminder, that Holtec, the company that owns Palisades, has been, they've bribed officials. They've gotten, penalized just recently back in January for lying to regulators. This is not a super trustworthy company. And so when they say trust us, it's probably best if you don't. Now, so this brings me to the question that just this past week they announced they finalized the Biden administration's $1.5 billion supporting this whole Palisades restart. If they had to replace the steam tube generators, it seems to me like this, like 1.5 billion is not going to be enough. That like most, historically, like most nuclear projections, it's going to be like way too low. Is that a reasonable guess?
Well, Holtec has already gotten a total of $3.1 billion in subsidies approved, mostly federal taxpayer subsidies. You mentioned the $1.5 billion Department of Energy loan guarantees. That was under the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. More recently, they just got $1.3 billion of USDA subsidies, if you can believe that. And what that's for is to reimburse the rural electric co-ops in Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois, which have pledged to buy all the electricity that would be generated for the next 25 years. And it's only 25% of what that power purchase agreement will cost. So these co-ops will pay the other 75%, but they're being, heavily subsidized by U.S. taxpayers. But even that 75% that the co-ops still pay is a gouge. It's 57% or more above market rate for electricity. So Holtec's just getting filthy rich off of all these, this time the Michigan Public Service Commission approved power purchase agreement sales price. And in addition, the state of Michigan has handed over $300 million already. So it's a grand total of $3.1 billion, but it's still just the tip of the iceberg. Holtec has requested another $5+ billion associated with the restart, and then $7.5 billion more to build two what they call small modular reactors on the same site, this tiny 432-acre site. So the bailouts are off the charts, huge, and the safety and environmental and health risks are extreme. It's unprecedented and it's unneeded. And the price tag that Holtec attributed to replacing the steam generators a couple years ago was $510 million. So they were thinking about it or giving it lip service. They were going to manufacture the replacement steam generators. So in a sense, they'd be paid to do it. But their attitude for the last couple years has mostly been, especially in an interview a couple months ago, they said, we don't need to replace the steam generators. If we have to make minor repairs, we'll do that. They'd rather just stick the $510 million in their pocket as pure profit and not do the work.
Wow. And of course, were those steam tube generators to fail, the environmental damage would be, would also be off the charts. I mean, we're talking, tens and 20s of billions of dollars, and as opposed to, this money, that has already been wasted on this project, which typical of nuclear is already way above the initial estimates from what you're saying. And I still actually have trouble wrapping my head around the fact that the Department of Agriculture is subsidizing this thing. This money could have been spent on wind turbines and solar panels, right? And gotten a lot more energy for the same amount of money.
Well, another expert witness on our team is Mark Jacobson from Stanford, and his focus has been on the opportunity cost for climate mitigation of going down this road with Palisades when, like you just said, so much renewable energy, energy efficiency, and energy storage could be purchased for the amount of money. that they're just wasting it at Palisades. I mean, this is ironic to say, but maybe the best case scenario, if all these bailouts are going to keep happening, would be for Holtec to just really screw up and its house of cards to fall before they restart. Because if that house of cards that falls is the reactor itself, like you said, it could be a Fukushima or Chernobyl scale catastrophe on the shore of Lake Michigan. But what I'm getting at is actually Noam Chomsky gave a speech at Bowling Green decades ago, and the context was about Star Wars, Strategic Defense Initiative. And he made the point that it doesn't have to work. It's all about getting certain corporations paid. And so that same dynamic is happening at Palisades. It doesn't have to be restarted. That's the excuse for all this money being transferred from the public to this, like you said, crooked company. And all the politicians who supposedly are public servants are making this happen. And maybe the best case scenario will be that it just, they make off with their money and they don't take these actual safety risks. But the money looting is itself not okay. I mean, we have a homelessness crisis in Southwest Michigan. You name the social issue that this money could go towards, but it's not.
Wow. Well, Kevin, we're running low on time here, but before I let you go, I do have to ask you about an anti-nuclear story, or a nuclear story that actually has touched the mainstream media somewhat, and that's the plan to restart the TMI reactor, the Microsoft wanting to contract to get the power from that nuclear reactor. This is also like massive federal subsidies, isn't it? You want to just comment on that story?
Yeah, we've been warning, for the past 2.5 years at Palisades that this is just setting the precedent that will be followed elsewhere. And 3 Mile Island Unit 1, the unit that didn't melt down, is the second zombie reactor in this nightmare parade. A third one that's waiting in the wings is Duane Arnold in Iowa. And just like at Palisades, the supposed excuses for doing this extreme behavior is data centers and artificial intelligence and even battery storage in Michigan and the electric vehicle car fleet. They have all these excuses that may or may not happen down the road. But the thing is, Palisades has been closed for 2.5 years. 3 Mile Island Unit 1's been closed for over 5 years, I think it is. The lights are on. The grid is stable. And they're just making up excuses to loot the public treasuries. So it's unacceptable. Actually, 3 Mile Island Alert has jumped into our Palisades intervention. We have to file our intervention tomorrow. It's our deadline. And they're joining us because they, like us, want to nip this thing in the bud at Palisades if we can. And I wanted to mention that Davis Bessie, has had so many near misses over the decades. One of them involved the steam generators. It wasn't tubes rupturing. It was some other loss of coolant flow through the generators. I don't remember the details, but it was a very close call. It took almost like Indiana Jones, superhuman effort to prevent Davis Bessie from melting down that day. It was 1985. It was just before Chernobyl. And, some of the other stuff we've talked about, too, applies to Davis Bessie. I mentioned the replacement steam generators are very dubious, and we tried to challenge that 10 years ago. So, Davis Bessie's still sitting out there, a very high-risk reactor.
All right. Well, Kevin, if people want to follow your organization, how do they go about doing that?
Our website is www.beyondnuclear.org. And if you want to get a hold of me, email is usually the best. It's kevin@beyondnuclear.org.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. We got to move on, but a pleasure as always.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Joe.
Okay, bye. All right. So
Pretty sure I was at that Noam Chomsky lecture.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
The one at BG?
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to have made a big impression on a lot of people. Other people have talked to me about that being at that lecture. So, and, as often is the case, Noam Chomsky was right. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for listening to that interview. And now it's time to listen to our advertisers and patrons.
For a Green Future is also brought to you by the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency. They protect natural spaces, maintain quality green spaces, provide engaging programming, and they teach people to love and respect nature. They also restore wildlife habitats and lead people on outdoor adventures. Wood County Parks protects natural spaces in Wood County for all to enjoy from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset every day of the year. There are several ways to get a hold of them and find out what's happening. One is to call them at 419-353-1897. Another is to visit their website, www.wcparks.org. The website again is www.wcparks.org. They are also available on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and many others. Just search for WC Parks. That's the Wood County Park District, and we're very grateful for their support.
And we are also grateful for the support of our patrons. Our patrons are wonderful people with incredible foresight who've gone to our page on patreon.com. That's Patreon. There they searched for a Green Future. Up popped our Patreon page, and they signed up at a level that their budgets could afford. And I just wanted to remind everyone that anyone who signs up to become a patron of For a Green Future will receive a free copy of my book, Venusification, a collection of short stories, and which are quite good, if I must say so myself.
That's right.
But
they have the author's endorsement.
Exactly. And I've written a lot of stories that I didn't like, but all the stories in this book I did like. So, all right. So that's patreon.com and search for a Green Future. So, Rebecca, now it's time for your part of the show. And what are we going to be talking about here?
Well, as I hinted in my previous juvenile and very awkward pun that didn't go over very well, I'm going to talk about the Phuket Vegetarian Festival in Thailand. This is a combination of Wikipedia and somebody called James's Phuket blog.
You want to spell Phuket for our audience there?
Phuket. Phuket.
Okay.
There we go. Well, yeah, this has been going on since the 2nd, and will go toward the 11th, till the 11th, apparently, this whole shindig this year. It moves around because it's based on the Chinese lunar calendar, so it creeps around to different months, I think, and different years, but it's right now. This year. It's also called the Nine Emperor Gods Festival. And it features parades, ritual mutilations, and fire walking. You don't have to do that to eat the vegan food.
Oh, good. Good.
But you do have to leave the beach because it's in the town. Apparently, they don't. It's hard to get festival food out the beach. But I think they mean mostly facial piercings by that. I hope.
All right.
Those only happen if you go in the temple and you can watch people getting ritually mutilated.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know. I might not. Anyway, yeah. In fact, it's a whole series of parades that go from various Chinese shrines around the island into the town of Phuket. And the first night, they have lantern poles that are raised at the shrines, and the emperor gods slide down the poles at midnight.
Oh, wow.
Like firemen, as my cousin from Boston used to call them. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of cool.
Something you don't see every day.
There's fireworks and prayers. The vegan food's especially made with specially cleansed utensils and no garlic or onions because they have too strong a flavor and it's unholy somehow or other.
Huh.
I don't know.
Just the opposite of Western, where garlic keeps the vampires away.
There you go.
Okay.
So, yeah. So they tend to go to Phuket town, and they also have things like bladed ladder climbing and nail bridge crossing. Again, you can just have a little piece of vegan food without doing any of this stuff. People.
All right.
So, to try and explain this, Thailand is predominantly Buddhist with a smattering of other religions, including the native animist tradition that's kind of been absorbed into Buddhism. And yeah, the the nine god emperor gods are Taoist entities, though, from Taoism,
So
which is a religion slash philosophy which seeks harmony with an impersonal process of transformation underlying the ultimate reality.
okay.
On a personal note, I've dated Taoists. Don't do it. They say stuff like that. It's, like in the courses of arguments about, what happened, who left something on the soap or something. It's
Well,
like,
I don't want to alienate our Taoist
yeah.
audience. I think we could accept that you've had some experiences with Taoists, but I'm sure Taoists as a whole maybe.
Okay, technically it was only one.
Okay, all right. So small sample size.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
there's a weakness in the study
All
that
right.
way.
Duly noted.
Yeah, but I'm not going to be dating more of them for to correct that necessarily.
Understood.
But yeah, the Nine Eastern Gods Festival or Nine Emperor Gods Festival is celebrated in many Southeast Asian nations. And it's strongest among a group I'd never heard of called the Peranakan Chinese, which are a wave of Chinese immigrants from the 14th to the 17th centuries to British-ruled ports in Asia. So there are Peranakan Chinese in India, which are commonly referred to as Chiti. I don't know if that's flattering or not. Just don't say it to a Peranakan Chinese person just in case. But yeah, so genetically and culturally, most of them are a percentage Chinese, but it's really complicated. They've done a lot of intermarriage, and in Indonesia, they refuse to refer to Peranakan Chinese, as a not Chinese person.
Okay.
So,
All right. That's
whatever.
all very confusing. But,
Yeah, a little bit. This is where I started to lose me, too.
But I'm guessing the vegan food is delicious, right? Because why else would you go through all that?
Well, people eat it for a whole week,
Okay.
and climb razor ladders, I guess, to get it. So it must be good.
All right.
I don't know. But yeah, so the environmental impact of veganism, again, as Joe said, it reduces greenhouse gas emissions from livestock. It reduces air pollution deaths, reduces water use, because obviously you don't have to water the cow's food and then water the cows.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, so it reduces deforestation. You don't have to cut down some to grow the stuff to feed the cows and then grow around some more for pasture land for the cows, pigs, whatever, chickens, and reduces wildlife destruction because deforestation also promotes clean soil.
Mm-hmm.
So that meme that's going on about how, well, you should do monoculture with avocados, me. It's a flaming load of crap. Veganism is in fact superior to ecologically, and Joe and I are not even vegans, and we're telling you this. It is.
Right. Yeah. But we're vegan friendly.
Yes, we are. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Rebecca.
We thank you for your service, all vegans.
Yes. Keep it up.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting, though. We did not coordinate that our
No, we didn't.
our stories linked up this week.
It just happened to be the week of the Phuket Festival.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's time to hear our ecological news for the week. And our first story, we go off to Germany, where the Germans are again leading the world because in the Renew economy on 9/26, they have a story, construction begins on world's tallest wind turbine in German lignite region. And this is in the region of, actually, it's in the state of Lusatia and near Brandenburg. And the blade tip on this wind turbine is going to be 1,200 feet above the ground. So it's...
How do you spell that?
How do I spell what?
Lusatia?
Yes, Lasatia. Lusatia.
Sure, it's not... Okay, never mind.
That's the state, and then there's... or the region, and then Brandenburg is in Lusatia. So, 1,200 foot off the ground. And when the thing about wind is that the speed increases as you get higher, which is why, you get up to where the jets are and the winds are going, a couple hundred miles an hour. But that starts right down here on the ground. And so they're figuring that with the same hub diameter, they'll be able to generate twice as much electricity because the turbine blade is higher, and it's going to go up so much higher that they're putting these new super tall wind turbines into an already existing wind farm, but they're not going to interfere with any of the wind going to the other ones because they're just going to be catching the wind that's higher up. The way they're going to do it, the engineering is that these are going to be sitting on 4 legs that are kind of designed like the Eiffel Tower, with all that lattice inside. And then there's going to be, on top of that base will be the pole, the traditional, monopole that wind turbines have these days. And so like I say, the height's going to be 1,200 feet off the ground. And so they're going to be doing a whole second layer of wind turbines on top of the layer that already exists. And they're going to add solar to the whole thing. And so they're going to get like the maximum amount of energy out of this wind farm. And they're saying it's going to have offshore wind performance, but they're going to have the onshore savings because it's much cheaper to build on the ground than it is to haul stuff out into the middle of the ocean. And the whole thing's going to be online by summer of 2025, which once again, we contrast that with nuclear, which, takes a decade or more to get going. These wind turbines, are going to be, they just started construction this week, and they're going to be functional by the middle of the summer. And so it's, a matter of months versus a matter of decades. And clearly wind turbines are better. And this development makes wind turbines even more economical and efficient and all that stuff. So good on you, Germany. Next, we go off to California, which you may not have heard about this because all the U.S. weather news has been about what's going on down in the Gulf of Mexico and what's happening in Florida and the South. But California this past week has been having a tremendous heat wave, 101 degrees. And, this is October, just to remind everyone, this is October.
Yeah.
But it's been 101 degrees over much of Northern California. This goes from the West Coast to the Rockies. They hit record temperatures this past week in 125 different places. And that's where they either met or tied record temperatures. Some of the numbers are really jaw-dropping, like Palm Springs hit 117 degrees this past week. San Jose, the entire week has been 102 to 106. Today, I checked today, they're going to be up to 96. So they, that's 96 seems hot, but
it's cold snap.
Cold snap. If you've been up at 102 to 104 all week, 96 seems like relief. 104 in Las Vegas. Phoenix, Arizona, has been hit especially hard by this. They're going to be at 100. They hit 113 on Tuesday, but that was the 113th day where the temperatures in Phoenix were at or above 105 degrees. So, and 300 people have died so far in Phoenix from the heat. I mean, we're hearing about the hundreds that have died from the hurricane, which is terrible, but heat kills more people than hurricanes do. And, if those 300 had all died on the same day, I think it would probably be headlines, but it's still, over the course of the 113 days, the heat has killed 300 people. So this is really terribly serious. And of course, all the subsequent side effects, like drying out all the vegetation, means there's more wildfires. And, if it's that hot during the day and it doesn't cool down at night, then that's part of what leads to dehydration, and it's part of what leads to people passing away from the heat. So it's good to know. We should know these things, but the media tends to, like I say, just focus on one thing, and even they're not paying attention. They're not mentioning the global warming aspect of it enough. So anyway, Then we're going to stick in California now, and in the L.A. Times, there's a fella, an energy reporter named Sammy Roth, and he wrote a column on October 1st, and the title is "Newsom Wants Californians to Help on Climate. He Should Too." Yeah, that's really true. Governor Newsom has started a PR campaign called Climate Action Counts, and he's basically telling people you got to save water, you got to take public transit, you've got to personally try to do the stuff that helps fight global warming, in part because he has gone the other direction with his public
Outside of San
policies.
Francisco, isn't public transit in California a cruel joke, basically on a level with Toledo?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
think,
thought so.
I think in LA it's not horrible, but yeah, most of California does not have really good public transit. And this is a classic maneuver, is to put the responsibility back on individuals, when what he's actually doing is, for example, he just vetoed a law that would have made it easier for apartment complexes and schools and other places to put solar panels up, to create. Basically, he just vetoed community solar in the state of California. And he even vetoed, they were going to start putting warning labels on gas stoves that talk about the recent studies that show that having a gas stove puts all kinds of nasty chemicals into your house, like benzene and other cancer causing. So all they were going to do, they weren't going to regulate any of that. They were just going to put a warning label on gas stoves, and the governor vetoed that. And Sammy Roth was like, well, why could he veto these things? And well, the answer is pretty simple. Oh, this of course is on top of having destroyed the California rooftop solar industry through his the Public Utility Commission that he appointed. And he even vetoed, they even passed something called SB 1374 with his backing. He vetoed SB 1374, and that was a law that would have allowed solar installers to add batteries to people's already existing solar installations, and that one is being sued by the solar installers. They're blocking it because his elimination of net metering destroyed the solar industry, and so a lot of these solar companies are desperately looking for something else they can do to stay in business, and it's a natural to have those same companies that put your panels up put your household backup battery up.
Makes sense.
But Governor Newsom wouldn't have that even. He's blocking that. So basically, in this column, Sammy Roth is like, well, how could he be doing all these anti-solar things and claiming to be pro environment? And the answer is actually pretty simple. Once he went nuclear, he became evil.
Yeah. Basically.
Because once he decided we're going to save the Diablo Canyon nuclear plant at all costs, part of that cost is the solar industry, because solar competes with nuclear. And, eventually you have to reach the point where you've got to choose. They're going to have nukes or are you going to have renewables? And he's chosen nukes. So there's the simple explanation. Sorry, Sammy Roth. It's, kind of disappointing, but that's the situation in California. Next story, and this one is really kind of heartbreaking, a little emotional. It's maybe a warning for people that care about animal cruelty. Story on September 30th with CBS News. In Wyoming, they had a situation last winter where a guy ran over a wolf with his snowmobile. He then taped the wolf's mouth shut, and he brought it into a bar where he basically tortured and killed it with all his bar buddies.
Ew.
Yeah, a horrible example of animal cruelty. And so the Wyoming state legislature, it basically caused an uproar around the world when the video of this went viral. And so the Wyoming state legislature has just passed a law not prohibiting you from running over wolves and torturing and killing them. No, it's it's making it illegal to bring them back to the bar and show all your friends as you're doing it, basically.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, it in fact affirms your right to kill wolves by running them over with snowmobiles.
Oh,
But you just then
Wyoming.
you then just have to kill them.
Wyoming.
What the law requires is that you just then have to kill them out there in the field. You can't, bring them home and kill them. So
Okay, yeah.
this is really terrible. This is what you get when you have this Republican trifecta. That it's really nasty. And the guy who did it, obviously got caught because he he was on video doing it. I mean, he had to pay a $250 fine, but that's it. So now, word of warning: if you're going to torture and kill wolves in Wyoming by running them over with your snowmobile, you have to stay outside. Don't bring it in. So that was so disgusting that I have to do 2 good news stories to get that out of our. And it's just another part of this whole philosophy that going back to the 1950s, that wolves are evil and it's okay to kill them because they kill other animals, and it's just scientifically, socially, everything. That attitude is evil, and so shame.
They're doing it to eat. You doing it for laughs is not the same thing.
Exactly. So shame on you, Wyoming. All right, next, off to Axios story on September 30th. So here's this. I got 2 good news stories to end with. This one is Ford to give away free charging units to new EV buyers. So essentially, if you buy if you buy an electric car, and in the fourth quarter of 2024, which runs from October 1st to January 2nd, 2025, if you buy an EV from Ford, they will not just give you a free charger, they will also come to your home and install it for free.
Very nice.
So, yeah, because what they found is one of the problems when people get an electric vehicle, they're not sure about how to get a level 2 charger in their house. They have to find an electrician. It takes a lot of time, blah, blah, blah. So they're completely removing that by really just giving it to you for free. Or if you've already done it, like if you've already arranged to have a level 2 in your house, they will give you $2,000 in cash.
Excellent.
So this is a cure for the charging anxiety that a lot of people with electric cars feel. And once again, one of the cool things, one of the most useful things about electric cars, especially the Fords, is you can plug into them and run your house off of them. You can run like just the essentials for about a month. Your furnace, your freezer, your sump pump.
So speaking of Wyoming and bars.
Oh, okay.
When I was in Wyoming visiting a friend in grad school in Laramie, in the course of one weekend, one of her friends in the MFA creative writing program had a drunk person crash through their bedroom window. Somehow he fell through the bedroom window. Nobody knows how he managed that. And then another friend of our in the MFA program, I believe, had a drunk person sleeping in their car, and they refused to leave and sort of like clung on with their hands while he was pulling their feet to get them out of the car.
Wow.
So, Wyoming, slow down a little,
Yeah. So maybe, sounds like there's not a lot to do out there except drink and torture wolves. So
kinda, yeah.
Maybe they should invest in, I don't know, more movie theaters or amusement parks.
Well, there's rock climbing. A lot of the people who go to
climbing.
grad school there actually do it for the rock climbing.
And, just public service, don't drink and rock climb.
No,
That's a bad
don't do that.
combination.
Very
Yeah.
bad.
Okay. All right, well, yeah, so this is a part of a long, shameful history in Wyoming then.
Wyoming has a lot of deaths of despair, much like Ohio.
All right, well, we're trying to end on an upbeat note here.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
It was real pretty, though.
Yeah, well, it is very pretty.
I saw
yeah.
critters.
Yeah. So this story is from The Independent. This is our final story, and it's October 3rd, 2024. And the title is, they've mapped the greenest countries in Europe. Okay, and by green, they meant green. They mean hydro, solar, wind, biomass, geothermal, and wave and tidal energies. And essentially, the good news is Europe is heading towards zero carbon electricity generation at a pretty good clip. We already reported last week that the UK closed all its coal. Unfortunately, they replaced a lot of that with gas, with methane. So net, they still a gain. It's not as much of a gain as if they had done more wind and solar. But pretty much everybody, all the countries in Ukraine are working towards zero carbon. Even Ukraine, in the middle of a war, has got up to 20% of their power now is coming from wind, solar, biomass, and hydro. The leader, well, not the leader, the leader in Europe is Albania. Albania has achieved 100% renewable energy. So, the nukesters always keep claiming it's impossible without nukes. But other countries just keep doing it, so proving them wrong yet again.
Well, they have to have something there, Albania. So what is Albania? Is sort of Greek, it's sort of Greek, but not really. I think that's on their crest.
I'm sure the Albanian culture is, marvelous and independent. But
yeah, I just don't know about it because I'm an American.
Right.
I don't know nothing.
So Norway, 98.5% renewables. Even as they switch, they're up to now 94% of their new car sales are electric. So the idea you've got to have nukes to have electric cars, that's also false. Portugal, 73%. Right now, this is the final good news information. There are 7 countries in the world, 100% renewables. Albania, Bhutan, Central African Republic, Democratic Republic of Congo, Lesotho, Nepal, and Paraguay. So it can be done. People are doing it. We're doing it too slow to survive at the moment, but at least we've turned the corner and we're heading in the right direction. Okay, that's it for this show. This is Joe DeMare.
And Rebecca Wood.
Signing off.
I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more 3-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!